Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited for today's interview. We are talking to a very well-loved #1 best-selling author with over 1 million copies sold. That's mind-blowing. And she's very well known for her parties and balls that she hosts for fans and readers, which I'm super intrigued to find out more about. And hopefully we can get an invite on the next one. I'm talking to the one and only Stephanie Hudson. How are you today?
Hi, yeah, I'm great. I'm really good. Yeah. So the sun is shining in Spain where I am, so I'm happy.
I could see that. You could see the sun coming through. I'm jealous.
I know, yeah, it's very hot around this time of year, so
I
need the
love it.
aircon on.
How long have you been living in Spain for now?
We've been here for 18 months, but I've lived in Spain on and off for the last 15 years. Because my parents moved here 15 years ago. So I've kind of spent a few years here and 1 year here and 6 months here. So I'm used to it now. So
How fluent is your Spanish?
oh, not at all. I can quite easily sit down and order drinks or order food or anything, but conversational Spanish, oh, you've lost me. I'm like, yeah, I know how to say lo siento, español un poco, which is mean I know very little Spanish, and that gets me through life here. So yeah, I do. I would love to learn the language, but it's just time. I'm really bad.
You're a very, very busy person. And obviously, we're going to unravel a lot of that in this interview. But I guess we should go back to the start as to how you even started on this writing journey.
Well, it sounds like such a cliche story. It's unreal. And it starts with I was a waitress at a cocktail bar. No, basically I was a waitress, and I'd always wanted to be a writer, but because I'm dyslexic, I had a hard time through school and was basically one of those people who kind of got told I'd do nothing with my life, and didn't come away with very much. But I've always had a very vivid imagination. So, and I loved reading no matter how difficult it was for me. So I kind of wrote in secret. I wrote poetry and things like that and little short stories. But nobody knew anything about it. So about 10 years ago, I wrote Afterlife. I was in a really bad place in my life, and I kind of needed focus. I needed an escapism, something to take you away. So I kind of I got a bit of a bee in my bonnet. I read a series of books, a very popular series of books, and got quite annoyed with them. I'm not going to say what, because I'll get slated. But for me in particular, I really just got a bee in my bonnet about writing my own story, and it was probably the best thing that ever happened, because it forced me to do something. And within 3 months, I'd written Afterlife. I got very obsessive about it, and I'd never written a book before then. I'd never done a writing course or anything like that. I kind of just winged the whole thing. And then I rang up my mum one day and basically said, "Hey, mum, I've written a book. Fancy reading it?" And she was so shocked because she had no idea. She just knew I was dyslexic and had really bad spelling. So I think she was a bit like, "Oh God, what am I going to do here?" It's like that awful thing for a parent. It's like, if it's awful, I'm going to have to crush my child's dreams. So she was really you could tell she was really skeptical. And I'll never forget, she read it and the phone call, and she absolutely loved it. And she said, if you don't get this published or try to get this published, it would be a real shame. So she was really the driving force behind giving me the confidence to do it. Skipping by 2 years of trying to get properly published. And, at the end of the day, I had nothing to offer publishers. So I'm not bitter. I was a dyslexic waitress, and I, had no qualifications. Like, what did I have to offer these people other than my story that they wouldn't read? So long story short, I could probably paper a wall with the amount of rejection letters I had. But I pressed on, and I wrote book 2. And I remember I'd just been bought a Kindle, and I was with my mum, and I was like, oh, you should get a Kindle, they're amazing, you know, you can fit so many books on there, and blah blah blah. I felt like a salesperson for Kindle. And she was like, well, can you publish on Kindle? And I was like, no, surely not, like surely it's not as easy as that. So I looked into it, and it is that easy, and it's literally just uploading your book. And so yeah, I was, funny enough, I was pregnant at the time with my daughter, my first child, and I was still working as a waitress. And yeah, I decided a month before she was born to kind of upload it, and being very, very scared. But it was the best thing ever, and I never had to go back to being a waitress. So I was extremely excited. We're extremely lucky, I think. So yeah,
So
that's basically it.
how was it received after you hit the publish button? Were you getting sort of readers that found it immediately, or were you word of what happened?
I was at a really lucky time. I mean, this was back in 2012, so it was a really good time, because obviously self-publishing had only just started to really become like a big boom, and there wasn't as much competition as there is today, especially in like paranormal romance and kind of, you know, epic fantasy and under the genres that I write. So it became it became one of those things. I was quite fortunate that I'd written book 2, and book 3 was halfway through being done. And I think it was that kind of rapid release thing that really helped. And because they're such big books, it's almost like reading 3 books in one. To try and hook the reader straight away is kind of the key to the game, should I say. And it really did, you know, hook a lot of people and make them go on to book 2. And then I suddenly found I had loads of people wanting book 3, and I was really excited. So, you know, the fans really drive you to, you know, write faster or do more. It gives you that encouragement that you really need. I was very naive back then as well. You know, I mean, I had no money. So luckily my mum is good at English, so she did my editing. And my sister had just done graphic design at university, so she did my front covers. And I was really lucky because I could basically hit the publish button without spending any money. But you know, I still had to polish Afterlife. I mean, the first, you know what it's like with your first book, you know, it is your baby, but you kind of have to really go back at it and change things. And it was really difficult because I was dyslexic and I took things to heart. You know, when anybody said anything about spelling mistakes or bad grammar or anything, I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this. Like I felt like a fake, you know. But yeah, so it took me a while to get over that, but I'm glad I did.
I do want to talk a little bit actually about your dyslexia, because that's amazing that you were able to overcome that obstacle and absolutely thrive. What has it become easier for you over time?
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely. My advice to anybody with dyslexia is, you know, it's not something you ever overcome in a sense that, you know, you shouldn't. It's part of you. There's nothing wrong with you. But what you should do is not let it limit what you want to do and what you want to be. And that's what I had done all of these years, and almost used it as this excuse hanging over my head. And why should I love writing. It's the thing that, you know, makes me happy. And I think if you can allow yourself to be happy and do what you want to do in life, then it's like winning the life lottery. You know, it's not about money or anything. It's about waking up every day and not dreading going to work. That is the key for me. So I was my own limitations, basically. And, you know, you should never listen to anybody else. There's going to be so many people out there that tell you you can't do something. And it's only you that matters in that sense. It's only your opinion of yourself that matters. So for me, it was overcoming that. And, you know, Microsoft Word really helps when it's got spell check and everything like that. And, you know, I mean, I use lots of different things. Like if I spell something so badly that even spell check can't pick it up, I just type in Google and I do the microphone and I just say it, because Google always comes up with it. So I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Then you just copy and paste and there you go. So you just got to learn kind of different tricks of the trade, I suppose. But I've definitely managed to hone my craft. You know, there is certain words that I can spell now that I never could. And there's also 10 years of saying the same word but never learning how to spell it. So it's equally as mind-boggling. So yeah.
And I think that's so true to a lot of writers or any creative, really, is that you really need to gain the confidence and overcome your self-doubt. What I love too about your story, because I've done a little bit of stalking, but what I love about your story too is that your mum and sister still have so much to do with your books and with your business. And it's so amazing to see that right from the start, they supported you so much. Are you able to tell us a little bit about your Afterlife series, or saga, should I say, because that is a big 12-book series. What gave you, where, how, when, why?
Gosh, I'm a very obsessive writer. I don't really suffer ever from writer's block or anything. If anything, I have the opposite. I don't know when to stop. For example, Afterlife really in my head should have only been about 4 books. And, you know, that just never happens. I mean, book 2 and book 3 should have been 1 book. And, you know, they're over 300K each. So that was never going to happen. I mean, you know, I'm not writing World and Peace. So it was, I mean, you know, my sister, you know, she works for me now, which is really great. And, you know, my mum, I was able to give my parents a house, and so they're neighbors, and my mum still works with me every day editing and doing the first edit and things, and before it goes to my team. And yeah, it's progressed so much. But to think that it started with just, you know, a girl who you know, she basically, the storyline is a girl kind of running from her past, this kind of thing that happened to her, which is quite traumatic. And she goes and lives with her sister in Maine. And, you know, she's English herself, so she's kind of walking away from everything in her past life. And she starts college there, and basically she gets this job at this club, Afterlife, and it's like this gothic club. Really, I didn't want to do like this cheesy gothic, you know, it's a really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Posh gothic, if there is such a thing.
Classy gothic.
Classy gothic, yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's no capes and yeah, anything like that. And basically the owner of the club, who is called Dominic Draven, he's kind of this mysterious force. Like, you know, the whole town kind of talks about this Draven family, but nobody ever kind of really sees them much. And, you know, they make 1 appearance a year and that's about it. And she kind of ends up with this job in the VIP where he is. And it's a really difficult way to describe the story without giving too much away. One of my things was, you know, to try and keep the reader constantly guessing on who he is. Obviously, he's not human. He's not, you know, average. And, you know, it's kind of the discovery of that. Now, saying that, it's not 12 books about that bit. Lots of things happen, lots of hot guys come into it, you know, there's lots of action and wars and fights, and yeah, so it kind of, the first one I probably is probably the most tame, I should say.
It's quite interesting though, because you do write very big books, like we're talking 300,000 words, which is insane. Then we've got a 12-book series. How do you keep your story, like how do you keep accountable to the rules that you've applied in your own fantasy world, because that's a lot. What's your writing process like?
Oh gosh, my writing process is not something I would ever recommend to anybody. I mean, you would have to be insane to to write the way I do. It's just one of those things that's always worked for me, and I've never changed it. And I think the thing that surprises the most people is that I am the most unorganized person ever. So I don't make any notes. I may scribble a couple of things down on a post-it note. I have literally a box of random post-it notes that I never look at, but I just write them down anyway. The only thing I ever do is at the beginning of a book, I write kind of a chapter breakdown, like a line or two, and then I set it to one side and I never look at it again, and I don't follow it, and it's totally different than what is there. But it just makes me feel better that I've got it. So, and what I do is I write a chapter, I read that chapter, I then send it to my mum, and I never look at it again. So I never read my books as a whole.
Wow.
I know, exactly. It's not healthy. I mean, I could never recommend anybody do this, because obviously that's not the process that authors go through. They read their books and they polish it and everything. But me, I know that what I'm writing is set in stone. Like, it has to be the way it is, because I already have that story all mapped out in my head.
Okay, so then let's talk about your new release, which just came out in August, Hell Beast. That is a new series, but is that connected to the world you've already created?
Yes. So basically, there is about 38 books all connected to the same world. So, they're all branches off of different characters. One of the main characters is a vampire king called Lucius, and he appears in book 2 and book 3. But because there's kind of this love triangle thing going on, the fans really like Lucius. It's one of those, are you team Lucius or are you team Draven type thing. And so I wrote a 12-book series on him and his chosen one. And then, there has been my teen series that kind of bridges the gap of time frame between, called the Afterlife Academy. And, then there's lots of different side characters. So what I've started now is one of the main kings of the saga, the Hell Beast King. So I'm really looking forward to continuing that on. Now, the problem I have is stopping. So at first it was going to be 3 books, and then I realized very quickly after I wrote the first book that won't happen, so I decided to change it to 6, and now I'm just finishing book 2, and I've realized that's probably going to be 9 books. So that's my issue. That is my problem, and I can never really give fans an answer, because they know me by now and they think, yeah, whatever she says is just bollocks. She's not gonna she's never gonna stick to that. Just so I think my books to write list is about 102, I think.
So what are we up to now?
No, that's from this point. My list to write. So I've started a 22 book series called the Siren series. So I'm writing that in between other characters. And I have got a list of all the other characters that have their own books and their own series and things like that. So
because you write very quickly, don't you? You have kind of like block out periods where you're focused, you're writing on this, nothing else, and then you have a break and then do it again, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The most I've ever written is I wrote 2 books in 10 days. I wrote Imp and the Beast, which is about a character called Pip. She's one of the main characters. And then I wrote Beast and the Imp, and that was only supposed to be the 2 books, but then by the end of it I realized I couldn't finish and had to write 4, so that's still continuing. But yeah, I wrote those 2. They weren't as big as my usual books. I think they were about 75k each. So but that's the most I've written.
How many words do you write a day?
It can be anything between 15 and 20,000 sometimes. Yeah. So it just
I'm so jealous of you right now. Like, that's amazing. But, 40 books later, you've honed your craft. That's amazing.
I mean, I never used to be able to do that. I mean, one book took me 6 months to write, The Quarter Moon, which is one of my biggest ones. But then again, I don't write as big a books. I would never be able to do that if I was writing 300K anymore. So I would, pass out probably. But my books now are about 100K, which, is a decent size, a full length novel. So that's what I do. So I usually, my challenge for this year was to bring one out a month. But because of the extra, it looks like it's going to be about 14 by the end of the year. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So that was my challenge.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask.
I do
Sorry.
it. I said, fingers crossed I do it. I did challenge myself last year to do it, but I ended up with pulling my back out and having a massive hernia and back surgery and all sorts. So that kind of knocked me for six with that one. So
I actually listened in on an interview with yourself, your husband Blake, and Mark Dawson, I think it was, or on his channel. And you were discussing how you were struggling to now sit at a desk because you were used to either sitting on the sofa or the bed. Are we comfy at the desk now, or?
Do you know what? I still sit like a Buddha on my desk chair. Like I'm one of the, I don't know what it is. Like I'm a big fidget. So I have to cross my legs or, like sit in like kind of a meditative pose. Not that I meditate at all, but I look like I can. And yeah, but I am sat at a desk. I'm no longer writing in bed or on an armchair because I totally, 10 years of doing that, it will mess your back up, definitely. So, I'm now a big converted believer of the desk and chair.
Have your back, people.
I know. Take care of your back. That's my thing. Yeah.
Takeaway. So I'm going to ask you the hardest question. Who is your favorite character and why?
Oh, it's so hard. It's a really difficult question because there is so many characters. For example, Pip is probably my alter ego. I mean, she gives me the most freedom as an author because, she's one of these really crazy characters that wears mad clothes, and she is very funny, and, she can basically get away with saying anything. So, which means I can get away with writing anything. But I think, Draven is probably one of my favorite characters for obvious reasons, because he was kind of my first book love. It's kind of, you always fall in love with your first hero, it's just gonna always be the way. And then, you've got Kira, who, because I write in a first person point of view, you almost feel so connected with characters when you're writing from inside their head, and I put a lot of emotions into my books. I was going through a divorce during one, and that kind of really came across, the heartbreak that she was experiencing kind of really came across on, in my writing and things like that. So it's a really weird thing for me because I'm not a very overly emotional. I don't cry very easily or anything in front of people. So for me, it's like therapy, writing for me is where I can pour everything out onto, and it's very freeing, I think. I always say that writing for an author is like food for the soul.
You have parties and balls for fans, and I've seen photos and it's utterly amazing. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. So the first one is going to sound crazy. I always said that like during my career, when I hit certain peaks or certain goals that I've set myself, I always say that I'm going to do something, or I have something in mind. And the first one was to throw a party for the fans, and during that time it was, I was starting to earn over a certain amount. So I was like, yes, right, I can afford to do this. So I invited 100 people I'd never met to my house, and for my birthday, I put on like a hog roast, and I had a coach pick them up and take them back and everything. And they all dressed as characters and everything. And then I had a bit of a book signing in my office, and yeah, it was really, really cool. It was really so much fun. And what's so lovely is that nearly 100 of those fans I see now at every party I have, or every ball, and it's almost like a family. I'm so grateful to my fans because they keep me doing what I love and adore every single day. And it's just a way for me to kind of show them my appreciation for them, and spend the evening with them. And yeah, I absolutely love it. So it's fun. But we kind of got to a point where I was like, right, well, I can move it away from my home now, and I can invite more people. And we did a vampire one at a nightclub that I hired out, which was great. I know. And I made this blood cocktail that I bought all of these blood bags. So everybody had like an Afterlife blood transfusion blood bag with a cocktail in that they could drink from. It was really great. And yeah, we had half naked waiters, and everybody dressed up as vampires. And yeah, so I had a big book signing there. And then we've had an Afterlife ball, which was great. And yeah, the next one will be the biggest one of all. That's like over, I think, 300 people. And we've got that at an even bigger venue, which is a cathedral, a kind of, no, sorry, not cathedral, an old monastery. And it's stunning. It's very Gothic, obviously. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. So yeah.
So I'm going to impose myself. When is it? And I want an invite.
Well, all Hudson Indy Inc authors get automatic table at the thing. Yeah, so it's in March in Manchester. And I think it's the 22nd of March, I think. 21st.
Wait, is that 2022 or 2023?
2022, next year.
Let me talk to my people.
Yeah.
What is happening? I love it. Speaking of Hudson Indy Inc, I want to talk about that a little bit. What made you decide that you wanted to start this, and why?
I mean, for me, it was one of those things where obviously I had such a bad experience with publishers, in a sense. And I'm not saying that, they're all bad or anything. I remember I got a deal with an Italian publisher called D'Agostini, and they wanted to take on Afterlife. And the second a publisher heard this and knew that they'd already got a deal, they kind of, wanted to get me on board. But this wasn't so much a publisher, this was an agent. And they kind of offered you the world and everything just so that they can get kind of an easy tick. Yeah, we've got one published author that we had to do no work for. And then after that, I really felt kind of used, and there was really no care whatsoever. There was no personal kind after that first time where they kind of try and schmooze you, I should say, into believing that they can help you achieve what you want. They dropped me like hot pancake. So it really kind of stuck with me that, oh my god, this is how soulless these places can be. And I think through the years, as I've done book signings and I've seen other authors and everything, there's some absolutely fantastic self-published authors out there, fantastic books, and sometimes they just get lost. They get lost in the masses. And I really wanted, because through the years of experience that I had learned, all the tricks of the trade and everything, I really wanted to be able to create a fair publishing house for self-published authors that are struggling, or that maybe want to take their success that little bit higher, or go to the next step, and this, that, and the other. So and I already had a team, because I got to a point with Afterlife and everything else where if all I wanted to do was write, then I needed other people in my life to be able to control everything else, social media and all other aspects of stuff. So I was like, well, let's start Hudson Indy Inc. I mean, I'd been trying to, I'd had dreams of starting Hudson Indy Inc. for, I think, probably about 5 years, 6 years before it actually came to fruition. So I was really excited. And, Blake is my husband, who is absolutely fantastic at advertising and with social media and things. So, that's kind of what turned it around. We kind of said, well, if what we can do for Afterlife, we could probably do for other authors. So yeah, and that's kind of where it went from there. And we give a really fair percentage, where most publishers will give 10%, if that. We kind of base our percentages on depending on kind of the level of where the author is, and then build it up and reassess it and stuff. So it's a fair system, what we've got going. And yeah, so it really took off, and we're really happy about it.
I heard a little story about how you turned it around for yourself before Hudson Indy Inc. came to fruition. You actually had like a really mind-blowing year for yourself. I think you basically put the last of your savings into ads and just went boom. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, funny enough. I mean, one of the things that I've been incredibly lucky, where all of these years, I call it, I've ridden the free wave of social media and everything. And I think a lot of authors will feel the same. 2015 was a big one for everybody, because it was when, Kindle Unlimited was introduced, and, it was all about getting paid per page read and things like that. Obviously, that helped that I had massive books. So I was like, woohoo, this is great. And yeah, there was a lot of things I did. I was asked to be, a spokesperson and a speaker for KDP and do London Book Fair and things. So I was really at a high at that point. I was like, yes, this is it. It's just going to keep going and going and going. And I was very naive. And that's not what happened. I found that the more books I was bringing out, rather the money was staying the same, or it was actually dropping. And over the years, it kind of went down and down and down and down. And it was when, everything changed on Facebook and Facebook advertising, and people weren't seeing your posts anymore, and algorithms changed, and a lot of other technical jargon that I'm not even going to pretend to tell you, because I'd just be winging it. But thankfully, we had our worst year, and my husband Blake kind of, we sat down and said, look, what we're going to do, you'll rather go, because at that time my husband, since we've been together, had always been a stay-at-home dad, and I had been the one to work. And obviously working from home, it helps when you've got the two parents at home to kind of juggle kids with. And I said to him, what are we going to do? I'm rather going to have to write part-time and you go back to work, or how are we going to do this? And he kind of said, like, well, what about advertising? And I think we had the last of our savings in the bank. And I won't mind, but it was the worst time as well, because it was around Christmas. And I remember us being absolutely skint for Christmas. It was terrible. And, the kids were happy and everything, but you know what I mean? You go into like these like Poundlands and really cheap shops to kind of, bulk up the presents and everything, like a lot of people, do. I mean, I remember doing it as a waitress. So we kind of said, right, if we're going for this, we've got to go all in. And we did. We took a gamble. Blake learned everything that he could. And through his learning about advertising on social media platforms, he kind of discovered, I can't obviously talk about it, but he kind of discovered this secret formula of his that nobody had applied to books yet. And he did it. And we kind of watched, the numbers like start creeping up and everything. We're like, oh my God, this can be it, this can be it. And then all of a sudden it just went and shot up. And we were like, oh my God, this works. And so what we did was we kept on reinvesting and upping how much we were spending and this, that, and the other, and lived frugally. And yeah, it just boomed from that point on. And
That's amazing. And
right.
for those who are watching as well, is Hudson Indy Inc. open at the moment for submissions? Whereas
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah, definitely is at the moment. So yeah.
I want to say, first of all, massive congratulations on selling over 1 million books, because that is insane, but so well rewarded. When was sort of the moment that you realized you'd hit that target? What did you do to celebrate?
I didn't actually celebrate it. Like, I know. It was one of those things that kind of just, when we were crunching numbers one day, because it's not something that you just kind of tally up, but we had to crunch numbers for some particular reason. And he was like, do you realize how much you've sold? And I was just like, no, I had no idea. It was a total shock. And I was just like, God, I remember when I hit the button. So when I first published, I had in my head a number of all the people I knew would have to buy it, because they know you, you've got this number in your head. You're like, well, I've got this many friends, I got this many family members. They feel obliged that they have to buy it. So, and then I remember when it started going over that number, I think the number was like about 30. And I was just like, oh my God, there is somebody out there in the world reading Afterlife that I don't know who they are, and it's then that it's like, oh my God, this is real, nobody's going to take it away from you. It's really happening. And so I remember thinking back to that moment, and I never thought that it would ever achieve what it did, but I'm obviously so glad that it has.
But you're very interactive as well with your readers. You're on Facebook all the time, you're doing lives, and bubbly, like nice and kind person. So that's an additive as well as having awesome books. But I want to know, what has been your, selling 1 million copies, obviously you've got loyal fans. Yes. What has been your most memorable reader interaction moment?
Oh God, there's been so many. I mean, I like to keep a very level head. When you have lots and lots of people telling you every day how great you are and how great the books are and everything, the last thing I want to do is get a big head and think that, I crack glitter. It's not ever gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, so as humbled as I am, and as lovely as it is to hear all of these really positive things, I always think in the back of my head, I'm one book away from everybody hating it. It is possible. Like, not everything I write is going to be golden. Not everything I write, everybody is going to absolutely love. And that thought in the back of my head always keeps me, grounded. And it's like the people that work for me. I don't want anybody to kiss my ass. I want people to say, Stephanie, you're nuts. Don't do it. I want people to say exactly how they feel, because I don't want yes people to be surrounded by me. And talking with fans as well, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, I owe so much to these people. The very least I could do is give them my time and let them know how much I appreciate them, so for me, chatting with fans is one of my favorite things to do. And funny enough, the moments I always get teary and I try and hide it is when I'm doing a book signing and there's a line of people to get my books, to get their book signed, or I see a sea of Afterlife fans all on the dance floor, all interacting with each other, and people have traveled from all over the world, and you just get this lump in the back of your throat thinking, oh my God, something I did created this, like brought all of these people together. And those are the moments that I feel the best. Those are the moments that really get to me. It's not, I don't bring out a book and really celebrate it. Maybe have a gin and go, yay, cheers, another book done and, dusted and everything. I mean, when you see people, getting tattoos of Afterlife, and I had one girl turn up and wanted my autograph, and she had that tattooed on her body and things like that. Those are the really real moments where you're thinking, oh my God, just don't spell your name wrong. just don't spell your name wrong. Like literally, that's all that's going in my head because I've done that. So it's like, just be cool. Just be cool. You know, it's just a Sharpie. You know, we can maybe rub it out to try and get before she actually gets this tattooed, you know. So but other than that, yeah, it's just lots and lots of surreal moments. But my favorite ones are definitely fan related. It like just meeting them and yeah, getting to know people. So
Then what advice would you offer for writers that are listening, for writers and authors? What would your 3 top tips be to them?
I mean, first, have confidence in what you're doing, you know, and, you know, at the end of the day, for people that kind of are in the process of writing their first book and maybe don't know where to start and everything, you know, nothing you write is set in stone, you know, but writing something and getting it on paper is what's important. You can always go back and edit it. You can always go back and change it, you know, but giving yourself the excuse of, oh, I need to research this, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, you know, it's procrastinating and it will never get you where you want. You know, you can leave chunks out and go back and describe things, or, you know, but just getting your thoughts down and writing and doing so in kind of, you know, a space where you're not interrupted all of the time or anything. I think that is the key. Losing yourself in your work is one of the biggest things for me. I put headphones on and I totally zone out and I'm in my own world. And it's being able to learn how to turn that off and on. You know, when you're writing a sex scene, for example, and then your husband runs in with your baby and goes, code brown, and there is crap everywhere. You know, that's going to kill anybody's libido, you know, even mine, you know, that's going to kill my character's orgasm right there. So, you know, and then it's having to then deal with this, you know, utter crap storm, and then go back to the middle of a sex scene, and you just, yeah, okay, I can just turn it back on like that. So, you know, it's challenging. If you cannot have that in your life, that would be good. That would make it
Experience right there.
Exactly, definitely. I've had quite a few moments like that. But I think the tips, as in for publishing wise, you know, obviously social media is a huge thing, and trying to make yourself really accessible to fans and not shying away from that side of it. You know, fans love the interaction that you have with them, and you're showing them your appreciation, because let's face it, fans need that appreciation. I kind of winged it massively. You know, I kind of went in there looking as professional as possible. You know, I had a front cover designed by a designer, even though I didn't have to pay for it. And, you know, I had it edited by my mum, but she was still good. And, you know, you have all of these things where you can try and offer a polished, like, book as much as possible, you know. So and also, you know, the front covers that you necessarily really like, test them on people, because I've seen some shocking ones out there. And, you know, and bless authors, self-published authors, that, you know, I designed this, and you're thinking, oh, bless you, but it looks terrible. You know, it looks like something Mills and Boons, like, you know, in the 90s. It's like, come on, you know. So I think really testing your image, because obviously, as much as you know, the sayings like you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, everybody does. That's the first thing people see. And I think that's really important. You know, I've changed my cover a few times to keep with the times.
Very practical tips just to be mindful of as well. Like,
Yeah.
you do need a polished product, and you do need to have confidence to back yourself up and be proud of what you've done. And you're right in the sense that sometimes we're a little bit too close to the project, whereas if we are designing the covers, or if we are doing something, we really take it personally, when we just have to remember that unfortunately it's a product, and perhaps sometimes getting outside opinions should be highly valued as well. This is my favorite question to ask. What is the goal? What is the dream that you are chasing for your career?
Gosh, that's easy. Getting Afterlife made into a series. without a doubt. And, you know, it's something that I'm working on. I've written the screenplay already, and I have got kind of things in motion, which I'm probably going to be spending more time on next year. It's a very different process writing the screenplay, and you know, that was a craft that I had to kind of really try and learn, and I had a lot of help with that. And you know, at first I tried to write Afterlife as a movie, and it just didn't work. There was way too much involved in it, and unfortunately those parts, when you're reading Afterlife, they're even the smallest bit, even if you think it shouldn't be there, it will come into it in at some point during the 12 books. So it's not like it can be cut down massively, because it's so integrative to the, you know, to the rest of the storyline. So it was, and also you have to write it in a very different way, because you can't just write it solely from a first person's point of view. You know, series and movies aren't like that. So it was a challenge, but I'm really hoping that, yeah, that's the next stage. Definitely. I've already hit being on the side of a London bus, which was one of my other big things.
That was in recent months, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was last month, so I was really, really pleased with that. I couldn't see it in person myself, but a load of fans got together, and my team all traveled to London, bless them. I didn't ask them to, they just wanted to, which was really nice. I think they went around London, because they all like had cutouts of my head, and they like were leaving them in random places, like stuck under the table of pubs and stuff like that, the places that are in the actual books. And like I said, I have a funny, awesome team. They're absolutely brilliant. My PA Claire, who I could not live without, she was my bridesmaid, but before that she was actually a fan. This is how I met her. And she was going to London to do this kind of quarter moon tour with all the places that were in the book. And I got wind of it. See, I do crazy stuff like this. So I got wind of it on Facebook, and I thought, oh, I could be in London around that time. I'll surprise them. And it was a group of fans. And I remember having this moment on the train thinking, oh God, you know, not many, like, you know, people like really like follow actors, and, you know, they know their faces, but how many faces of an author do you really know? Like, I'm thinking, I'm going to jump out and surprise these people, and they might not even know who I am. That's going to be really embarrassing. But anyway, I did it. I jumped out of a bush and surprised them. And then I went around London with them and did the tour with them, and then took them for drinks. And yeah, and two of those fans are still my best mates today, and they both work for me, and they were both my bridesmaids. And yeah, so you know, I just love that. Sorry, I always tell people that story.
I love that story. I genuinely, I do love how connected you are, because these are stories that you would often hear when you're talking to authors. You know, it's very limited to the conventional signings that they would have, or perhaps they make a pen pal here and there. But I love how in it you are, how much you appreciate your fans and readers, and you're just as excited as they are. I absolutely live for it. I love it.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet.
I have a segment called Speed Dating with an Author. So you and I are going to go on a very romantic date. I lit a candle. I've created ambience. Basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
Oh my God, easy. It was my first date with my husband. I met him online, and then I met him at the airport 2 months later. And he moved in that day, but before then, we went for a meal. At least we thought we've got to have one date, and we got there really late because his flight came in late. And for some reason, they sat us at this table that was seated for like 8 people. It was like silver service, and you know, where you've got loads and loads of place settings and all the glasses and silverware and everything. And I really should not be allowed in posh situations like this, I'm telling you. So at some point during the meal, for some reason, I don't know how, but I got up to go to the toilet, and I must have tucked the, thinking it was my napkin or something, but I tucked the tablecloth into my pants. And as I got up, I started to drag all of this 8 place settings off the table. And thankfully, Blake saved me just in time as the first few were starting to fall and grabbed me.
That is proper rom-com scene right there.
I'm the most clumsiest person. Like, I'll do something playful where I'll try to jump on Blake on the bed, and my elbow and my knee will slide off the side, and I'll just we'll just smack him in the chest. And that's my romance. I am not cool at all. I have not a cool bone in my body. You know, I'll be the person who's falling over trying to get my legs in my trousers. It's just, I'm so clumsy, it's unreal. So yeah.
Then I am super intrigued for this next answer then. What would be the 3 words you would best describe yourself with?
Oh, clumsy, scatty, loyal, I suppose would be, yeah.
What is your life motto?
I probably have 2. The one for me would probably be, you know, winged life. Winging life and still carrying on. No, I think for me, it's probably, you know, the kind of the saying that I have is what I said before. You know, what books are to a reader is food for the soul, but what writing is to an author is also food for the soul, and basically feed your soul. That's my motto.
So what is the song that would best describe you?
Oh my God. I tried to think of this so much, and it's probably going to be Happy. I know it's from Despicable Me, but it doesn't matter. It's probably Happy by that guy's name. I'm a ridiculously happy person most of the time, and I have to. I live in a bubble, because for me, when I'm writing, if I'm not happy, if I'm not in that place, in that zone, then I can't. I'm useless, you know. So I'm always happy. So yeah.
That's awesome. Annoying. That's a good way to be.
Yeah, exactly.
What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not many people know about?
Ooh. I can tie a cherry stem into a knot with my tongue in less than 10 seconds.
And you said you weren't romantic.
I know. Do you know what? I really impressed Blake with that one.
You do that before the dinner date, and that's sort
I
of.
know. She was like, oh my God, I brought my own cherries. Do you want one? No. Anyway, watch this. No, I didn't go quite like that. Thankfully, I was a little bit more cool than that, but you know, it came close.
But I've had so much fun. Where do we find you? What's coming out next? What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, obviously the first of the Hell Beast came out, and I'm currently working on the 2nd and the 3rd to come out in quick succession. So that will be out hopefully this month, the 2, I'm hoping, but if not, at least the 2nd one is definitely coming out at the end of the month. And then yeah, it's basically after that I'll continue with the Hell Beast series, bringing out obviously the Siren series as well. And for finding me, you know, Google my name, and I just Facebook, Instagram, basically everywhere, which is actually a funny story. When you used to Google my name, Google got me confused with a 60-year-old porn star in California. So it would not only come up with my face and my books, but it was also come up with my porn videos. So which was great, because when I first moved here and I was randomly telling people, oh, just Google me and I come up, you know, when I was telling people about my books, I didn't realize that this happened. So then for ages, and I lived on this estate to begin with, everybody was giving me these really funny looks like, is she 60 and does she do porn? Like, you know, and I had no idea. For nearly a year, and I'm there going, yeah, just Google me, and it was probably the worst thing I could have ever told people to do.
It's almost shame you weren't earning those royalties as well.
I know. I mean, you know, I didn't watch any of them, but the front covers look good. I mean, one of them was set in space, you know, and it was very original.
That's adventurous.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
So now that doesn't come up on anymore, or it does?
No, we thankfully, I got one of my team members on it, and I think I have to, months of nagging at Google, they basically, got it right, and they've now. I'm pretty sure. I hope. I wonder how many people are going to Google just to check.
I love on the end note of this interview is whether you're going to come up as a 60-year-old porn star on Google.
I know. I'm, like I said, I'm not like any other authors.
I love it. Well, Stephanie, I have had such a good time having you on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had loads of fun. So, anytime. I love it. And I can talk anybody's ear off. So, yeah.
I love it. And I'll pop all your links below so everyone knows where to find you. And if they haven't already started the Afterlife series, they need to. I have started mine so we can read it together. And I will talk to you soon.
Okie dokie. Brilliant. Thank you.
That's all right. Bye.